A big week with a lot of familiar faces, plus the big news with the return of a legend. Let's dive into this week's Seelbach review. I'm joined with Brian Bikey. Brian, how's it going?
It's going great. Ready for another release.
Ready for another release, and I'm really, now that we're recording the videos, I have to stop myself from saying with every lead in, oh, we've got another big week planned. But, it's a fun one. There's a lot to dive into. There's a lot coming out. And sometimes I feel like we kind of build up through the week. We'll have some cool stuff early and, drop a big release on Thursday or Friday. With this release, it's really cool because obviously everybody loves Penelope bourbon. They put some really cool stuff in there, but it does raise money for the F Cancer organization. I believe they raised about $250,000 last year. But it's a unique bottle. It's really cool. It's a blend of several different whiskeys and ages. And I think that one's really exciting. In general, it's just good to have more bottles of Penelope on the site. And especially when they are bottles that, kind of like with the rare character last week, we're usually limited to either a single barrel it's sold out to pro or it's going to a lottery. And this one, we've got enough that we can get it out to the whole Seelbach audience, which is really exciting.
Absolutely.
And I will also say that for pro members, if you're watching this, we do have a few other things that most likely won't make it out of pro, but a few other, we've got a little bit of the Founders Collection coming in, a little more of the cigar. So also be on the lookout for those. So always something fun up our sleeves to go along with these bigger releases. Then after that, really cool to see, it's hard to believe, Lost Lantern is celebrating their 5th anniversary. So at their 5th anniversary, they are doing several single malt focus, which is kind of funny because I feel like just a couple months ago, we were asking, where are all the good single malts this year? And Lost Lantern answered. Maybe they heard us. And so they've
Absolutely.
got a mesquite smoked single malt from Santa Fe Spirits, which is, they've done some of those in the past, really interesting. Then they move on to bourbon. So they've got a Cedar Ridge bourbon. I love Cedar Ridge. I think they have a lot of great barrels. And we haven't seen a lot from them recently, so that should be good. Then one of my favorites actually is New York Distilling. They have a New York Distilling rye finished in apple brandy cask, and it's 9 years old. If you haven't checked out anything from New York Distilling, Alan and his team do an incredible job. And, the fact that it's 9 years old, was truly craft distilled in New York is fun to see. And then to round out the 5th anniversary release, they have a double oak bourbon from Iron Root Republic, which just another great Texas distillery. They're kind of in that top tier of Texas distillers that I really like. So that should be great. And to add to the fun, we also have a single barrel coming from Lost Lantern, which is our corn whiskey. So it's a blue corn whiskey from Balcones.
Come on now.
We love all things blue corn here. Corn whiskey is still just one of my favorite sipping drinks. It's just a fun, maybe it goes back to the old school mellow corn days, but this one's like just really viscous and sweet and kind of all the things you want from a good corn whiskey. So that'll be a fun release. I think there's just a lot. There's something for everybody in that one. And if you're not familiar with Lost Lantern, they visit every distillery they source from. They really highlight that barrel. It's predominantly all single barrels. But when we talk about brands that are pushing blending and non-distiller producers forward in American whiskey, Lost Lantern's probably one of the best.
Yeah, we start almost every email in those lines, but it's if you're into craft and discovering craft. We try and bring things to the site, but sometimes it's really helpful to be working alongside someone like Lost Lantern because, we don't actually get a whole lot of these releases, and they're able to spread them out a little bit, which makes us be able to spread the reach of more of these smaller producers around and be able to feature some of them. And if you all remember back, I think it was in Q1 or Q2, I had mentioned that the Opulent Orchard, which is this apple brandy finished New York distilling, was one of my favorite ryes / finished spirits so far this year. And I believe this one's a little bit older than that is what they had mentioned. So I'm looking forward to that release, especially since I wasn't able to get a bottle of the first Opulent Orchard. So I'm looking forward to this release.
No
I always
shots
look forward to
taken.
Lost
No
Lanterns.
shots taken of like, oh well, man, I really would have loved one of those.
No, no, no,
And
no. I mean, it's, that's the thing is like, I'm thankful. I mean, I made the mention to you before too, until either late last year or this year, I was talking to them, I'm like, guys, you guys highlight so much stuff quarterly, but I haven't got a chance to try it, so I don't know how to communicate that to people. And we were able to start getting like little sample sets of it, and that's been really helpful because some of my favorite releases last year and going into this year come out of the releases that Lost Lantern's able to showcase. And it highlights Lost Lantern's ability to grab those samples, also these smaller producers putting these things out, some of their blends and some of the Ghost Distiller releases. I mean, all sorts of things. If you're not spotlighting Lost Lantern in your collection and you're a fan of craft whiskey, you got to change that.
yes, I agree. And I think just for somebody who goes in, tells a story, explains what it is, and they give us exactly what we're looking for with these small distillers. And it's like, hey, we may not be able to do an entire barrel of Cedar Ridge or whatever it is, but this is just a great way for us to get these products in that we think are fantastic in a more manageable format. So that should be good. And congrats to them on 5 years. It's hard to believe, but Adam and Nora do a great job. Yet next up, another familiar brand, which is Barrel Craft Spirits. We're bringing out their Armagnac finished as well as their New Year's 2026 whiskey, I guess. And with anything barrel, it's always going to have some fun, funky twist to it. Armagnac finished. I love Armagnac finished whiskeys, especially bourbons. I just feel like that pairing goes so well together. I think Armagnac's the category. I tell bourbon drinkers all the time, like if you're looking for something new, there's still some incredible bottles sitting out there. This one's fun. So it's a blend of 10-year bourbon from Kentucky, 7, 8, 11, and 12-year-old bourbon from Indiana, and finally some 9, 13, 14, and 15-year-old bourbon from Tennessee. So combine all those things, the mash bill ends up being 78, 18, 4. That's corn, rye, malted barley. And, when it comes to blending and finishing, once again, Barrel Craft Spirits, they do one of the best jobs in the industry. Their team, I mean, we got a chance to chat with them at KBF about some of these releases, and they just have so many cool projects going on. Sometimes it's hard for us to even keep up. This is another example of that. Did you try the Armagnac finished at KBF?
I don't remember if I did. I feel like the barrel booth at KBF was a bit of a blur, but I've got a video for that, so that helps. But I think Barrel is similar to Nashville Barrel Company in that regard, where it's not the newest name to folks. And in some instances, too, a lot of their bottles have been hard to identify differences between them. And so, you kind of just, a drinker can just kind of get lost at times. But from what we tried at Kentucky Bourbon Festival, some of the newer products, I mean, I still think that Barrel's putting out some incredible stuff, from everyday drinking bottles like your Foundation Double Barrel, maybe even if they, I don't know, did Foundation Barrel, Double Barrel, single barrels or something, that Seelbach may have picked or something like that at KBF. But then to their 12-year French oak to their triple rum, I mean, they are, like you said, doing great blending, finishing, all sorts of stuff. And I still think that they're one of my favorite brands to watch just for really good whiskeys.
Yeah, I will. We do have, same as Penelope, if you're a pro member, we do have a few other special things coming with this barrel release. Very limited, but it'll be there for you on Wednesday if you're a pro member. But even, they had two of my favorite pours out of the entire KBF. And, the triple cask rum was just incredible. We had a light whiskey that was wildly good. But even some of the bourbon that they had from Wyoming that there may be a single barrel coming from was so good. And, I think about starting Seelbach. One of the first barrel picks we did was from a Wyoming distillery. It was a wheated bourbon. It was about 6 years old. And, these are in that same almost lot of barrels based on the age statements. And just to see bourbon from different states hitting, 10, 12-year-old, they've got a lot of great stuff. And so I'm excited for them. And, as the old quote goes, the only bad thing about new books is you don't go back and read the classics. And I think Barrel's given us just tons of reasons to be like, yeah, like I've tried Barrel, I've liked Barrel. But with these new releases, it's like, oh, yeah, I've got to jump on those because they're putting out great stuff. Even the New Year release, I feel like somehow we always end up not getting it in until much later in the year. And it's like,
Yeah,
oh, celebrate the New Year's bourbon in February. But this
absolutely.
one's a wild blend, as all the New Year's are. So it's different ages. These barrels are aged from 5 to 16 years old, and they come from Indiana, Kentucky, Wyoming, Maryland, New York, and Ohio. So, if you want something that has a little bit of everything in it, that's going to be a great bottle. So should be
Yeah, I
good
feel
and
like
definitely exciting.
Barrel New Year's release is like the Truduncan release, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's got a little bit of everything. But I also feel like it's one of the annual releases that very few people talk about, especially considering how many people I feel like generally end up getting it. Like a lot of, they've got like a media list or something it seems like people always get. But the New Year's releases, I think, are always really fun barrel blends. So looking forward to
It,
that.
it's like my kids at a fast food restaurant. They just go down the fountain drink machine line and everything, and then you taste it at the end. You're like, I can't lie. Like it's actually
Not too
good. It
bad.
actually works
Not too bad.
together somehow. So
Uh huh.
yeah. And then, we kind of end on a big note, the return of a legend. So, if you're unfamiliar with Echoes of Oak, it's a brand we're going to be releasing towards the end of the week, but a name you are familiar with is Jim Rutledge. So Jim Rutledge is former master distiller of Four Roses. So Jim's been retired for about 10 years and partnered up with Pennyroyal Distillery, and they're coming out with their first release, which is Echoes of Oak. So the cool thing about this is Jim's name's popped up here and there. He's done some consulting and everything, but he's been with these barrels since the start. So it's stuff that he distilled in Frankfort, Kentucky. It's a blend of almost 6 year and 9 year old bourbon. The mash bill is 65, 25, 10. And if nothing else, it's just really cool to see Jim Rutledge back with his own release with something that he, distilled, blended, and I don't want to say he helped bottled, but he was there for the entire process because that hasn't been done yet. And you've gotten a chance to try it. So what were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I this one does come in at about 107. I say about. I mean, it is 107.2 proof. So this is, and I think that price reflective as well. You can kind of see what type of bourbon this is. But again, a blend of 6 and 9 years old. The nose is really enjoyable right from the first pop, and continuing to come back to it also. I think I was on the phone with you the first time I opened it and nosed it, and I was like, look, I don't know if it's just the fact that Jim did Roses stuff. I'm a big Roses drinker, so I was like, it kind of makes me think of stuff like Roses-esque type notes. And so the first thing I had in my head was a small batch select, just kind of like thinking about that product, but then bringing it back into the studio and kind of tasting some other things. If you're a fan of the Bourbon Deluxe release, I think if you were a fan of like the Silk Velvet, I think that, not saying it tastes exactly like that. I think Silk Velvet's going to be fruitier. I think that the Bourbon Deluxe is going to be more like candy bar type profile, but this is like a bourbon drinker's bourbon. And to me, it's got a lot of things though that do make me think about the small batch select. So I think people who want a bourbon to taste like bourbon, 107 proof, good priced bourbon, I think it's going to appeal to a ton of folks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you were describing the nose when we were on the phone and I'm like, well, I'm sold. Like, where do I get a bottle? So
Yeah.
I am excited to try that one. And even when we're chatting, you're like, I mean, I know the notes that I'll write about it, but it's just like a bourbon drinker's bourbon. Like it just tastes like bourbon. You're like, well, does that sound bad? I'm like, no, I think that's what people like to hear because, there are some things that we have at times that can be a little different, a little funky. It's like if you just want really good bourbon, and we should say it's priced. Did we say it's priced at $60? Like that's a
We haven't
great
yet,
price
but
point
now
for
you
something
did.
like that. So I think, they did a really good job with the blend, priced it well. And I think bourbon drinkers and Seelbach's customers will be excited for this one. So should be
Yeah, I'm excited to
should be
see
another
other
fun
folks
release.
start start to get some opinions on this one, and again, everything else that we're releasing for the week also.
Awesome. Well, that closes us out for this week. So looking forward to another big weekend Seelbach. I'll go ahead and say it. And thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Cheers, everybody.